I'm going to present a new side channel leaking microarchitectural information, but via an architectural interface. And this is a joint work with Taehyun Kim, Daniel Weber, and Michel Schwarz. So first is the motivation, like why such an architectural side channel matters. I mean, there are many side channels have been found over the last decade, and I believe you might have heard many of them are based on the timing difference. Like you can observe the execution time, and then you can infer the metadata inside the CPU, like which branch is taken or whether a memory access is a cache hit or cache miss. And similar timing difference can also be used to infer the internal state of other microarchitectural components like DRAM, TLB, execution port, ring buffer, and so on. And there is another kind of side channel telling us that we can also exploit the power consumption. So the power consumption is different when the CPU is executing different instructions or even with different data. However, to read the power consumption value to build a power side channel, we need an available interface. And for the timing-based side channels, we need a high-resolution timer. And besides that, another property that many side channels have in common is that the measurement itself usually breaks the internal state. For example, if we want to timing a memory access, the measurement itself will bring the target into the cache. So before the next measurement, we have to reset the state. For example, flush the cache or evict the cache line, which takes much longer. So if the victim events happens during such a period, we cannot detect them, and that's what we call the blind spot. Hence, we raise two research questions. Can we replace measurements with an architecturally defined interface? And also, can such an interface reduce the blind spot of existing side channels? Yes, so since Intel, Tremont, and Adlake, they provide us an unprivileged instruction pair, umonitor and umwait. So the umonitor instruction provides a virtual address to the CPU, saying that the currently running application is interested in any writes to that range of memory. And the umwait instruction tells the CPU to stop execution and enter a slightly sleep state until such a write occurs. So originally, these two instructions are designed to provide us a good synchronization primitive in user space. For example, if the user doesn't want to wait so long if the write doesn't happen, they can simply define a user timeout value, and which is a 64-bit input value of the umwait instruction. And the CPU will only wait until the timeout value is reached. And next, if the operating system does not want to allow the user can such easily suspend its processor execution, they can also specify a maximum delay by writing to a model-specific register. And on Linux, the default value is 100,000 cycles. And what is interesting here is that if the CPU wakes up due to the OS-defined timeout, the carry flag is set. Otherwise, if the CPU wakes up due to the user-defined timeout or interrupt or the write, the carry flag is cleared. So basically, we get different architectural feedback here with different wake-up trigger. And next, we further analyze the monitoring function here, like how does it work? So our experiment shows that not only writing directly to the monitored virtual address wakes up the CPU. We do not observe any difference when writing to an aliased address. And next, a write to any offset within the cache line leads to a wake up, whereas writes outside the cache line do not trigger a wake up. Hence, we can confirm that the implementation is based on the physical cache line, and actually it's depending on the cache coherent state of the monitored physical cache line. And the monitoring hardware detects when the target address turns into the modified state. So even it's undocumented, we show that transiently write will also wakes up the CPU because transient execution leaves microarchitectural traces. And combined with those properties, we can build our first primitive transient write monitor with the different carry flag feedback. So basically, the attacker monitors the target address, which is a shared memory with the victim, and then the attacker just enters the sleep state. And if the victim transiently writes, the CPU wakes up with a cleared carry flag, and then the attacker just remonitors the address again. And if there is no transient write next time, the CPU wakes up due to the OS-defined timeout and gets a different carry flag, so he knows there is no transient write. And afterwards, the attacker just keeps remonitoring and waiting all the time. So compared to conventional side channels, the blind spot rate of our primitive is very small. So for example, the remonitor phase on our tested machine is around 175 cycles with a monitoring phase of, with a monitoring phase of 100,000 cycles, the blind spot rate is less than 0.2% for each iteration. And our side channel does not suffer from the memory, the noise from memory subsystem, even under pressure, because we only focus on the modified state of a specific cache line. So even this cache line is evicted due to some cache activity, it doesn't matter because, as long as it's not dirty in the cache. So the only false positive we get here is due to the interrupts, which is a very common false positive source for other conventional side channels. And besides the write monitor, we can also exploit the timeout feature itself to distinguish the timing of events. So the attacker needs to have two logical processors here. And the first one just normally monitor an attacker-controlled address. And on the another core, the attacker needs to first calibrate a padding. And it doesn't matter what instructions are used here as long as the execution time of the padding is close enough to the OS-defined timeout. And normally we use NOP instruction here because it has the minimal dependency. And in the end of the padding, we use the mfence instruction to ensure the serialization. And after the padding, the attacker just simply executes the target event, for example, a memory access, and lastly, write to the monitored address to wake up the CPU. So what's the function of the serialized padding here is that we want to make, if the target event is a slow event, for example, a cache miss, then the write is too late to wake up another processor, and this first processor has already woke up due to the OS-defined timeout. But if the event is a faster event, for example, a cache hit, then the write is early enough to wake up another processor, so we get a different carry flag here. Then we can use this value to distinguish the timing of event. And last but not least, we can also turn the false positive of our primitive to another attacking primitive, interrupt monitor. And this time, we do not rely on the carry flag value. However, we just count the number of retired UM8 instructions. In other words, we count how many times the CPU enters the sleep state within a coarse-grained time bucket, like 10 million seconds. And we show AMD and ARM also provide similar instructions that we can use in the same way, and they are unprivileged. So for example, on AMD, it's monitor X and emulate X, and on ARM, it's WFI. So building on these primitives, we get 3 case studies here. For the transient write monitor, we evaluate the spectral attack, which means spectre with our architectural leakage. So with certain gadgets, we get a leakage rate up to 200 kilobits per second. And in the middle, you can see the AES T-table attack, which I would say is a very classic benchmark for side channel attacks nowadays. And we evaluate our timeless timing measurement with well-known side channel like flash and reload, prime and probe. As you can see, the result is very clean. So we show the result of our primitive is as deterministic as those Flash and Reload and Prem and Probe. And lastly, you can see we perform a website fingerprinting attacks on our Intel, AMD, and ARM devices. The prediction result is not bad. It's around 70% for top 100 websites on our tested devices. And to summarize our paper, we present the first architectural side channel on Intel microarchitecture, and we argue our side channel has the minimal blind spot. It still has the high precision and low noise at the same time. And finally, we perform interrupt timing attacks on all the Intel, AMD, and ARM with unprivileged instructions. So if you are interested in more details, please read our paper, and we have open sourced our code on GitHub, so feel free to play it around. Thank you.